I'm Brian. This is my wife, Mandy, and we're here to tell you a story about Shay. My father was adopted at a very young age, and that's something that's been on our hearts for 21 years of marriage. And so we had always kind of had that in our mind, and we got to a point where God was really leading us down the path of adopting a child. We're living in a world where there are so many children that need a home, they need a family. There's so many children that are being aborted every day because the world thinks that there are no homes, there is no hope for these little children, and we wanted to be a family that showed the world there's always another way, and that all children deserve life and deserve to be loved by family. And so we started down that path about 6 years ago. It was in November, and my wife had asked me to really pray fervently about adoption. She felt God was leading us down that path to begin the process that we had started years ago. And so we began to pray about it together in November, and we found we wanted to adopt internationally because we didn't really want any ties to the birth family. We wanted all that to be broken, and we started looking at some options there, and it was going to be 3 or 4 years down the road. It was going to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, and we really left. And we had a meeting with a group of people to talk to us about it. We left that meeting really discouraged. We didn't have the time. We were in our late 30s. We didn't have the resources, the financial money to pay for it, and we really left discouraged, but still sought the Lord in all of that. And in February, we received a phone call just 3 months later. We'd been told 3 or 4 year process. And just 3 months later, we got a phone call from a lady that said she had a 24-year-old young lady in her family. Her name was Emily, and she was about to give birth to a child and wanted to adopt that child out. She didn't have the means to take care of that child, and so she wanted to adopt that child out and wanted to meet us. And so we drove to Indiana. We met Emily. And again, we were wanting to adopt internationally. We wanted no ties with the birth mother. And immediately in meeting Emily, we knew that this wasn't just our story. It was God's story. It was so much more. And we knew immediately that God was calling us to do an open adoption with the family. And so a couple months goes by. Emily has Shay. She's born on April 15th. I remember we drove all night to Indiana, and we got there early the next morning. We're at the hospital. We felt very out of place. All the family was there, and Shay was born. And I remember they brought her into the nursery area, and everybody was gathered around the window. We couldn't see. We were in the back behind all the family. And I was thinking to myself, would it be possible to love this child who wasn't bone of my bone, blood of my blood, as much as my biological daughter, which our biological daughter was 7 at the time. And I remember one of the sisters weeding herself through the family and bringing us to the glass up front so we could see. And I remember seeing Shay for the first time, and God answered the question that I had. Immediately, I loved that little girl as if she was my very own. It was an amazing reminder to me that these children, they're all our children, and they all need hope and they need homes. And I remember the stay at the hospital. We were there another 2 or 3 days, and they gave us a room for ourselves and our family, and for Shay to stay in that room with us. And if the biological mother or her family wanted to see Shay, they had to go to the nursery, and they took Shay to the nursery, and they could see her in there. And I remember we went to the nurses, and we said that, we want our room to be open for Emily and her family to come into this room and spend time with the child. And I remember the nurse said, that's something you really don't need to do, because she has the opportunity to change her mind and keep this child. And we just felt God wanted us to do that. So we opened our room, Emily spent time in there with baby Shay, and her parents and her grandparents spent time in there. And I remember when we were leaving the hospital with Shay, that same nurse came to us and said she'd worked there for a long time, 15, 20 years. That was the first time she had ever known that room to be open to the biological family. Gave us opportunity to share with the Lord, share the Lord with them that God is in control, and it's His story, not just our story. So we left with Shay. Shay was in our home for about 8 months, and it was in December the 7th. Yeah. December the 7th was the court day, where we went to the judge's chamber, and Shay was going to become officially a Taylor, Shay Taylor. And I remember the process like it was yesterday, and I remember the judge sharing with us some of the law, and he said, before you agree to this adoption, you need to hear some of the law. And he said, according to the law, your biological child, if you choose to disown her or remove your inheritance from her, you can. But today, for this one you're adopting, legally you can never remove your name from her or withhold your inheritance from her. And I remember, and my wife, both of us remember sitting in that moment, and all I could think of was Ephesians chapter 1, where God said that He has adopted us as His children through Jesus Christ. And what it meant for me and the hope that it gave me to know that I'm God's adopted child, and nothing will ever remove God's name from my life or remove God's inheritance from His child. And so the whole process for us, I think it was more for us than anybody. God constantly reminding us that He was in control and that there was hope. The relationship that we have with Emily now, the relationship that we didn't want to have, that we wanted a closed adoption, the relationship that we have with Emily now. She's married, has another child, a little boy. We stay in contact with her, and it's been a beautiful relationship for her and my wife. The whole process is a God process, and it's given us great hope. We want to adopt more. We're praying about fostering some children now. So I want to encourage you, if you're wanting to adopt, or if you're pregnant and you think there's no other way, and you think that ending the life of this child is the only option, there are families out there who will love your child unconditionally, who will not only provide for them physically, but will provide for them spiritually too. There is hope, and we just pray that our story, really God's story through our family, would bring you hope and give you encouragement today.